going on? Cara de culos. We're back with episode 9. Now, this is a part 2 of the story that I was telling previously. So if you have not seen episode 8, definitely go check that out so you're not lost. With this story, I kind of wanted to tell this story just because I got hella questions and I would get messages. Now, the DawgHouse, as y'all may know it, was it's my private story on Snapchat. And if y'all are on that story, y'all know hella shit be going on that story. Rant times, dissing people, cussing people the fuck out. I mean, a whole bunch of crazy shit goes on that story. It's really live. Not recently, I've been working a lot, so it's kind of been a little more toned down. But back then, it used to really be popping. So, anyways, so most of y'all know it is just a private story, but I would get messages like the DawgHouse, what's the DawgHouse, why the pit bulls, and why the red, just a bunch of questions. And I was like, well, I think eventually maybe I'll do a video just to kind of, explain it, the backstory, because there is a backstory. Because all of this started about, well, now maybe about 9 years ago, 10 years ago, almost a decade. And so basically, and I don't want to talk a bunch. I want to kind of just jump right into it. So if you, like I said, if you haven't checked out episode 8, go check it out. Now, side note, y'all see I got my little sign up now. Now I plan to mount this bitch. I know it looks a little ghetto right now, but I just got it sitting on top of that thing. But I wasn't trying to fuck with messing with it and mounting it and all that shit. So I don't know if y'all can hear that, but that was my phone telling me to charge it. Anyways, so we ghetto fight it for right now. So it's just gonna sit on that bitch. And another thing is, when I had it made, I should have had it made inverted, because with the way I record and the way that I flip the camera before I post it, it kind of makes it look like it's backwards. You know what I'm saying? But y'all can still see what the fuck it says. Ho, it's the motherfucking DawgHouse, bitch. Ain't another one like it. Nah, I'll play it. Anyways, so kind of a flashback to episode 8. Uh, I'm having a chance to tell a story of my really good friend, like I said, Cassiano, and I feel like nobody knows him on a more personal level than I do, because I had the pleasure of being around him and getting to know him. So this story, really could have been a movie. And I know some people will be like, what? That didn't happen. What? Well, you don't know unless you lived it. And, I've seen firsthand what it did to him, how it affected him throughout the years. But, it really is a great story because, like I said before, people already have a bad image when they think about these, people that drug deal and things like that. And, yeah, I mean, drugs are illegal. I mean, there's not really a good way to paint it. But, sometimes people just got to do what the fuck they got to do. And who are we to judge, I'm sure a lot of you motherfuckers got some deep, dark secrets that y'all don't want people to know. So we're not, we don't judge too much. That's another thing. Y'all better stop judging, ho. I gotta get a drink. Talking to you thirsty ass hoes. I say that, and I'm the one thirsty for the fuck. Anyways, so I'm just gonna hop right into it. And like I said, I got my little notes because I really don't want to miss any detail. Because you really got to know every single thing, because this is, like I said, this happened almost 9-10 years ago now. So this was a really long period of time, especially him being so young and going through a bunch and witnessing a bunch. And so flashback from the last story. Cassiano was at a football game for extracurriculars, and he's getting a bunch of phone calls, and so he cannot, like, he cannot, god damn, I'm reading messages that people send me so that I'm saying the shit. So my bad. Okay, so anyways, like I was saying, he was at the football game, can't answer the motherfucking phone until halftime when they get a break. And so, long story short, halftime comes, he checks his phone, over 20 missed calls from Flacco. And if y'all don't know who Flacco is, he was one of the members within BHG from the last story. And he has a bunch of bunch of missed calls, a bunch of texts. People blowing up his phone. Like, what the fuck's going on? Come to find out that. So I'm gonna start from the thing now because I kind of want, like I said, I don't want to miss anything. So he calls them back as soon as halftime hits, and that's when he got the news broken to him that Rex had been found dead earlier that evening. He had been shot execution style right through the windshield. And so getting that news, because Cassiano said that Rex was like a big brother to him and Bosco. Getting the news that one of your people was shot, especially execution style, just because that's very deliberate, very personal, very, you wanted that motherfucker to die. And so getting that news, he said his heart completely dropped. He felt so sick, and immediately broke down. And he said that a few of y'all that he went to high school with will remember the time that y'all saw him crying, because nobody had ever seen him cry, but y'all saw him crying at the football game, and he thought, and he just told everybody that it was because he was having issues with his ex at the time, and so he told everybody that it was because they had broken up, and blah blah blah, made up a bunch of bullshit. But in reality, it's the fact that one of the biggest and members that he was closest with, the BHG, had just passed away. And so Rex was in Round Rock at the time doing a drop, and basically it was a drop gone wrong. Cassiano couldn't attend the funeral because of school. And so not Bosco, Rex ended up going to that drop alone that night due to conflict, because remember that Cassiano had implemented the nobody does drops alone, it's a two people job, ever since the death of Mac. And so after Rex passed away, BHG continued on in his honor. The members of BHG grew extremely closer and closer, and they really cracked down on how they operated. Rex was the second person that they had lost since BHG came about. And so they underwent a name change because, in his honor, it just didn't feel right to keep going on. And so Cassiano said, without his big bro, he didn't feel like Blackheart Gang should continue to go. So that's when the DawgHouse came about. Now, because and this is word for word, he told them after the death of those two that they had to be dogs in the game, and that, we in the motherfucking DawgHouse, and word for word. And so from then, they became ruthless, heartless, fearless, and plotted to get their revenge, because one thing that he was big on is an eye for an eye. Anything that you do, you gonna get back 10 times worse. So they did end up finding out who killed Rex about a month later. And if I know I mentioned it in the last, if y'all remember the LKM, the Latin King Mafia, they had a member known as Key Clips. um, Key Clips was the real Don's basically underboss, so his right hand man. And the real Don, like I said, he was the head, the leader of LKM at the time. So Key Clips handled all of his dirty work, basically an executioner, because that was not his first body. And at this point in time, LKM had become a huge problem for the DawgHouse, because they wanted the same turf that they sold on between Round Rock, Austin, Killeen, and San Antonio. Like I said, turf wars were a big thing during this period of time. And so, but he said that they didn't call him Key Clips for nothing. He had a steady hand, and he almost never missed a shot. Apparently, he was former military, but bro had hella bodies, and how he never got caught, no fucking clue. And so, fast forward to about 2 months later, AK, which is another member of the DawgHouse, um, calls Cassiano and tells him that Scooby and him have eyes on key clips lacking at the club, at some club that they were at. In where was it? In Dallas. So Cassiano makes a decision. He tells him, you know what? It's in y'all's hands. Do what you think you need to do. And I think we all know what needed to be done at that point. And so, long story short, they followed Key Clips back to his place, waited for him to park and get out of the vehicle, and they drove by and basically, did what needed to be done, sprayed his shit up. So, in memory of Rex, Cassiano said they celebrated the next day, they smoked, they drank, and they lived it up that day. And he remembers it so well because that was like his second family. But from that point on, the problems only got worse. Um, Money continued to grow and business continued to grow, but with money and success comes problems regardless. And so Cassiano said at this point he's about to graduate high school. So he graduates high school in 2020, and at that point they had lost Big Mac Maine and Rex, both the shootings. The group, clearly upset. Things got stressful. Tension begins to rise as they argue where to go from here, what to do, who, looking for someone to blame, basically. But there's no one to blame but the enemy. And though the business and money continue to grow and spread, turf wars end up at an all-time high, and the beef with the Latin King Mafia heats up even after the death of, especially after the death of Key Clips. And just like the DawgHouse, the LKM wanted revenge as well. Eye for an eye. And so at this point, BHG, or formerly BHG, now known as the DawgHouse, had been operating for almost 5 years. He said they all felt on top of the world, and the bond of all the members was extremely close, and they trusted one another with everything. So they thought. One day, Robo, which flashback, Robo was the tech nerd, the dark web, deep web. He got them basically everything they needed to be successful. Very tech savvy dude. Anyways, Robo comes to Cassiano and he says that he felt something off. He felt that something was off with Katana, and Katana again was another one of the members of BHG, a female. She was the second female ever, second and last. No, she was the second female ever recruited. Um, and so she was a driver and a dropper, so basically a mule. And so Robo said that he overheard Katrina on the phone saying, and I quote, "He'll be doing a drop Thursday. He can be next." The fuck does that mean? So Cassiano confronted Katana, but it was basically a he said she said basis. The thing about Katana and Robo was that they basically had a toxic love type shit because I guess they had messed around and blah blah blah, and you know how that shit goes. So at that point you can't really know who to trust. And so he said, so he couldn't tell who was lying, but who was she talking to? That, like, why would you say that? So fast forward about a week later, they, like I said, they think the group is close. Blah blah blah. Big Slick, which was another one of the first members to join BHG. Um, you know, Basically bodyguard, big ass motherfucker too. Oops. He was set to do a drop that day out in Houston because he had family there, and so he was gonna stay at his brother's house for about a week. Cassiano receives a text message the next morning from Robo saying that Big Slick had been shot from behind in the back of the head at his brother's house outside of his gate. He had a pack of beer in one hand and his phone in the other, right beside him. Now, who the fuck would have set that up? Besides old girl, you got to put two and two together. It is kind of fucking cold in here. That fucking fan's on high, but I don't want to get up and kill the vibe. But anyways, uh, so um, Big Slick's brother ended up contacting Robo, as Robo and Big Slick's brother knew each other through Big Slick, and so Cassiano said he immediately saw red and tried calling Katana, of course, straight to voicemail. All of the members tried to contact her to no avail. And so weeks go by and Cassiano tells them to find her. It's really going to get heated up. Big Slick had a funeral about 2 weeks later. Cassiano wasn't able to attend that one either. But a few of the members did end up attending. At this point, the DawgHouse was stuck. They kept business going, but having the thought of betrayal of one of their own made them all think, who else can we not trust? Like, is she the only one that switched up? Like, what's going on? Like, so tension grew, things getting fucking crazy and shit. Why would she switch up, and who was she working for? 2 weeks later, Robo receives a text message from a random number. It was a picture of Katana with the real Don, which, like I said, the leader of LKM at the time, and another female member of the LKM known as Coco South. After Slicks, Rex, and Big Mac Main's death and the betrayal of Katana, that put the DawgHouse 4 members down. All that was left at this point was Cassiano, Scooby the Don, AK, the Queen Bee, Bosco, Robo, Flacco, Trap Lord Capone, Trap Dog Zay, leaving the group at 9 members. And like I said, everybody went by aliases. He said that there was no point in knowing nobody's real name because you're living 2 separate lives. So that's why the aliases are important in this story. So he said at this point in time, the biggest threat was LKM because they had 15 members, 16 now that Katana had switched over. But the rest of the BHG team, or the DawgHouse team, stayed loyal to Cassiano. At this point, they were selling marijuana, coke, pills, shrooms, codeine, carts, and edibles. He said things stayed steady and money came in with no major issues for about 6 more months. So at this point in time, we're now in November of 2020. Cassiano and Bosco recruit replacements, 3 of them, to take, the fallen one's spots. So they ended up recruiting D Money. Trying to find where I'm at. D Money, someone known as Cash, and Sapphire, which was the third and last female to ever be recruited. Um, D Money, he was a 25-year-old tall, light-skinned dude. He always wore a do-rag, always dressed in Jordans, shorts, and slides. So Cash was an older guy that Bosco knew. He had a full set of golds in his mouth and always smelled like cigarettes and cologne. So I'm trying to give y'all a vivid description of these people so y'all can kind of, Sapphire, like I said, was the third and last female recruited. He said she was beautiful as fuck, short, 5'1", 5'2" chick with long black hair, always had her makeup and lashes done, and always wore long stiletto nails. She gave off Chola vibes, and definitely by the way that she talked and dressed, bandanas and shit like that. So with the new addition, that put the DawgHouse at 12 members. Sapphire and D Money rolled together. They came in together. They rolled together. Kind of as friends, whatever. And they were in charge of the cocaine and codeine distribution down in San Antonio. Cash and Bosco handled the weed and pills from Temple to Austin, Killeen, Round Rock, Waco, and Cove. At this point in time, Robo becomes more of a huge asset to the team and gets his hands on automatics, drums, extendos, switches, beams, etc. Cassiano said he kept the doghouse strapped, and even Robo's little nerdy ass had a knot. So everyone was strapped up. Sound like. Um, so they had guns, but this drop was definitely an upgrade, and they even got bulletproof vests because shit was about to get real and shit was about to get ugly. So it's December, a week before Christmas. A member of the LKM known as Two Tone Dimes gets arrested after a bust at his house. They found guns, enormous amounts of cash, and numerous drugs and narcotics inside of the house. Two Tone was Two Tone was arrested and questioned as apparently he had been on the police radar for quite some time after they had been tipped off. The reason that the doghouse found out was because shit was about to hit the fan, as Two Tone actually ended up snitching. Now, really, I should stop it there and make a part 3, but I'm not one of them motherfuckers, so I'm gonna keep going. So I think we about almost 3/4 through the story, or maybe halfway. It sounds like I'm reading poetry or some shit, but I don't know. I can't, like I said, I get a little camera shy and then I can't remember shit right off the top of my head, so I gotta have my notes because I don't want to miss any fucking details because this shit is about to get real. Anyways, so Two Tone ended up cooperating with the feds and telling them that he was a part of LKM, who the supplier was, and much more in exchange for a lighter sentence, of course. Nonetheless, down came Two Tone, and along with Two Tone, the real Don, which was the leader at the time of LKM, keep that in mind. Another member of the group known as K Rock, he was one of the foot soldiers. White Boy Mikey, which was one of their drivers. And what do you know, Katana was with them at the time of the bust as well, because they raided his house, and that's who all was there at the time. Word got out that Katana had been caught in a sting. I just bit my fucking tongue. With the rest of them, Two Tone snitched and gave all of their names. A week before Christmas, they were all arrested and booked in Houston. With the LKM losing 4 of their members, the doghouse was at the top of their game with the capture of the real Don and so many charges that he, God damn it, bitch. With the many charges that he had, he wasn't getting out anytime soon. So at that point, LKM needed a new leader. And of course, the next man up was his underboss, his right hand man, the other one, someone known as Big J the Trigger. So keep that name in mind because his name's gonna play a vital role to this story. So we're now in 2021. A couple months go by and it's silent from LKM. They haven't heard nothing. So they continue operations as normal. That's when Cassiano said he started second guessing his position in the doghouse as the Don, basically the leader. So we're now in March of 2021. The deaths of Big Mac Main, Big Slick, and Rex all played heavy on Cassiano's mind and heart, and he especially blamed himself for Rex's death. He said he viewed him as a big brother because Rex had took Bosco and Cassiano under his wing and showed them the ropes. And so now that he had been gone, it had been almost 2 years at this point since Rex was murdered. So keep in mind, Rex was murdered in 2019. Cassiano said he mentally battled himself at this point in time. All the money, and he had questioned if all the money and stuff was worth it. The respect, the power, the nice things. That's when he decided to talk to the gang about possibly stepping out. And so his main bro Bosco ended up talking him out of it. Bosco and the Queen Bee. He suggested that they run it themselves. But they said that there wouldn't be no doghouse without the motherfucking dog father. And I quote, And that Cassiano said that's the day that he accepted the Dogfather nickname and stepped up his role. Because he said, because this stuff that they were living was literally like, if y'all have ever seen the Godfather movies, with all the mob type shit going on. He said this is basically how they were living, but this was real life. Months go by, and then in July of 2021, Trap Dog Zay, who was known as a Falcon, and if y'all don't know what a Falcon is, it's someone who watches the streets, basically gets info from other people and gangs, and basically, was security kind of. He knows what's going to be dropped where, when it's going to be dropped, who's going to be picking it up. Basically, like a spy type shit, a Falcon. So, in July of 2021, that same month, Trap Dog Zay was shot 5 times outside of a bar in Gonzales, Texas. He was taken to the hospital where he passed not too long after arrival. He had been with the DawgHouse since the very beginning. A quiet dude, but he knew how to handle his fucking business. They all basically grew up together the last 6 to 7 years that BHG was running. At this point in time, Castellanos said they weren't sure what else to do. The tension with LKM had grown worse once Big J had taken over. He was a lot more hot-headed and destructive, set on destruction than the real Don was. So his sidekicks at the time was a motherfucker named Young Blood, and then Coco South. I mentioned her earlier. She was the same girl that was involved with Katana and the real Don, but now she was with this dude known as Young Blood. Word got out quickly that they were the ones who killed Trap Dog Zay. As they got the word that he was getting info from others on suppliers, the whereabouts, and he planned for the DawgHouse to hit the supply when it dropped. That's when Scooby the Don and D Money, 2 members of the DawgHouse, went after Coco and Young Blood. Cassiano said he told them, do what y'all need to do. Context clues. Long story short, a lot of drama happened. Young Blood was shot and killed by Scooby the Don right outside of his car. Coco South ended up escaping and she ended up getting arrested about a month later on other charges. Cassiano said he wasn't exactly sure what she was charged with, but he believes that she's still locked up to this day because they were not light charges. A month goes by. They had lost Trap Dog Zay. It's now September of 2021, and they continue business as normal. Money was at an all-time high. The Latin King Mafia had been silent thus far since the killing of Young Blood, but of course, the DawgHouse expected retribution and retaliation for sure, an eye for an eye. So September 2021, one of our top dealers, AK, was arrested for driving without a valid license, an unlicensed firearm by a felon, narcotics, paraphernalia were found in his car, and apparently had a warrant for a failure to appear in court. So AK was immediately locked up, and Cassiano said he lost contact with AK ever since. At this point in time, they had lost Big Mac Main, Big Slick, Rex, Trap Dog Zay, and now AK. At this point, turf wars had started back up again really bad, and they were having issues with the mule suppliers getting the product and wanting to raise the price. They went through about a month drought, the first drought that they had encountered. So basically, they just had to sell everything that they had left, and it was still good money, but it was not near as much as they were making the last few months prior. The drought hit was temporary. Robo found 2 new suppliers and better mules, and they were able to get stuff from Cali and Mexico. Robo even tried to get some of that Colombian coke, but that deal ended up falling through. November of 2021, the DawgHouse gets over the drought, and they made a huge comeback. The new product coming in was way better than the previous, and he says props to Robo for that. After the streak of bad luck that the DawgHouse had endured throughout the course, things end up being good until about the end of December, right after Christmas. Like I said, we're in 2021 at this point. Cash, which if y'all remember his name, one of the last people recruited, he ended up to be a rat. Turned out to be a rat, and he ended up getting arrested on a domestic abuse charge. But he was high as fuck off of meth when he was arrested, which the DawgHouse did not sell. And he was talking all kinds of crazy to the detectives. Because of this, Flacco ended up getting arrested as well because Cash ended up snitching because they rolled together, and they ended up losing Cash and Flacco. Cassiano had contact with Flacco for a good while and even put money on his books. Flacco had a daughter and a baby mama. 2 weeks later, D Money and Sapphire. Now this came to a big surprise, but not really at the same time to Cassiano. Like I said, 2 weeks later, D Money and Sapphire announced to the gang that they were wanting to step out and step away. It turns out that they had a baby on the way, and they were together and had been together for a while. Cassiano said he had his suspicions, but he didn't really care as long as business continued. He said they supported Sapphire and D Money 100%, and they had even threw them a baby shower at the spot. Good memories were made that night, and each member of the DawgHouse gave D Money and Sapphire some money. Yeah, they gave them some money to help start their family. D Money, he said, was a very good guy, and you could tell he really wanted to get right for his baby and, his girlfriend Sapphire. But with that came more members gone. So at this point, we're halfway through January of 2022. All that's left is Cassiano, the Queen Bee, Trap Lord Capone, Robo, and Scooby the Don. Nonetheless, they still ran shit. They did their thing. The DawgHouse was still on the map. Cassiano and the Queen Bee had been involved romantically before, but now even more so. He believes that they were in love with each other, but they could never fully grasp and comprehend the idea of love, especially with one another. They were meant to be partners, but not together. If business partners, but not partners. Cassiano said he always regretted not telling the Queen Bee how he truly felt. He let his pride and ego get the best of him. Side note, at the 4th of July party, that same, later that fucking year, Bosco had mentioned that he possibly wanted to retire and start going to school. He decided he wanted to do right because his mom was very sick and he wanted to be there for his little sister if something happened to his mom. He also came clean and said that he had a daughter on the way. So this was soon after D Money and Sapphire's baby shower. Bosco told the group that he had gotten his girl pregnant and he wanted to focus on his family. And so, of course, they supported him 100%. They said they had him with money, to just, take care of his girl and his kid on the way. A couple weeks later, with things still running as usual, it's now July of 2022, July 15th to be exact. Cassiano's world came crashing down. On July 15th, 2022, in a setup attempt, Bosco was shot and killed in a similar way to Rex. Bosco was shot in the head twice in the driver's seat of his Camaro. He was literally doing his last drop before he was going to retire. This was one of the biggest drops that would have had a high payout. Someone ended up hearing the gunshots and calling the police. It was all over the news. Cassiano was at work when he found out. He ended up leaving early and broke down in the car. Bosco and Cassiano had practically grew up together from, starting as youngins with Kingpin to developing BHG to, him being the co-founder of the DawgHouse Inc. Cassiano said almost 8 years. Bosco was his brother, his underboss, his partner in crime, literally, and the co-founder of BHG and the DawgHouse. A month later, Cassiano said he couldn't take it and he told the gang that he was stepping down and leaving the doghouse. He said they argued and that they tried to get him to change his mind, but ultimately he decided it was time to step down and retire from the doghouse. Not completely, but from the gang shit. So Queen Bee and Trap Lord Capone ended up taking over. They changed the name from the doghouse and they, renamed it and rebranded it as something else. That ended an 8-year adventure and, basically run that the doghouse had. Robo ended up leaving soon after that, and none of them ever heard from him again. Um, None of them had any idea where he went or where he's at to this day. Cassiano said he was broken as fuck at the news of Bosco's death, and to this day vows revenge on whoever was responsible for his death. Fast forward in October of 2022, after just selling weed here and there, carts and edibles, the Queen Bee hit Cassiano up and said that a member of LKM known as Dopey was responsible for the murder of Bosco under the direction of Big J the Trigger, which was the leader of LKM. It turned out that Bosco had a 40K bounty on his head. Queen Bee ended up leaving the gang in November of 2022. And she went off and did her own thing out in Houston. And Cassiano said he always hoped that she would have gotten out because she was very beautiful. Like she could have had a good life ahead of her. And as if that wasn't enough, on January 18th of 2023, the Queen Bee was shot and killed in a drive-by in Houston. Of course, these motherfucking dogs barking. The Queen Bee was shot and killed in a drive-by in Houston. She was driving, and her cousin and his girlfriend were in the back seat. Cassiano received the news the next day from Trap Lord Capone. He hadn't heard from Capone since his departure from the doghouse, but Capone knew about Queen Bee and Cassiano's history, so he wanted him to know. The cops ended up thinking that it was road rage and that the Queen Bee cut someone off and the drivers retaliated. But Cassiano said he knew the truth and that was not the case. After the Queen Bee's death, Cassiano questioned everything and figured they would eventually take out all of the members of the doghouse one by one. He changed his alias, he changed his look. And so this was what was crazy. It turns out that, and I just found this out, so through someone I know, remember I had mentioned that or maybe I didn't mention, we never knew exactly who killed the Queen Bee. And this was, back in January of 2023. It turns out that the person who killed, um, the Queen Bee, was in fact murdered 2 days later. Like I said, they never knew who killed her, but I recently found out about a week ago that, it's a small world. Someone was in the back seat while his brother or some family member, was his uncle, I think, was in the front seat. He was the driver and the shooter. And so they had killed a girl in Houston, blah, blah, blah. So it turns out 2 days later, whoever Queen Bee rode with at that time, they retaliated and ended up killing him. So, I recently got peace of mind knowing that. But at the time, I didn't know that. And it's ironic that while I'm doing this story that I find that out, So it's kind of like anyways. So Cassiano said he did little sales and deals here and there. And then finally on August 23rd of 2023, he officially retired from the game completely. He stopped smoking, doing deals, didn't do anything, and he's been clean ever since. Cassiano said that, well, no, basically Cassiano died that day, but deep down he still lives on. But and he says he'll always be a gangster at heart. Once a gangster, always a gangster. But you got to think about your future and what you want in life. He said it was an amazing run, and he has so many good memories. But with the good memories come bad. With every good comes bad. He said he has dreams and nightmares, and he sees their faces. He misses them all so much. That was his family, his gang, the motherfucking doghouse. Everything he does is for them. And to this day, he still stands on getting his get back for each and every one of them. Now, my bad for the fucking dogs barking and shit. I didn't know they was gonna go batshit crazy, but somebody just came home. But so yeah, I mean that's basically the story, and like I said, I got to know Cassiano on a personal note, and this was a really good story. It's very emotional. It's very real life. I mean, people think shit like this just happens in the movies or it can never happen to them or blah blah blah, but this shit's real life. I mean, not everyone has a fucking silver platter, gold spoon, mouth fed, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody has a good life or starts out good, and but basically, life is what you make of it. So, um, but yeah, Cassiano's done. The doghouse as a gang was done. But we're gonna turn some bad. We're gonna turn bad memories into something good. And so that's why I decided to kind of use the doghouse and run with it. Because it was something that was very important. Like I said, I knew these people firsthand. While not directly involved, I always knew what was going on. And so that's basically the story of the motherfucking doghouse, ho. And so, like I said, I hope y'all found it interesting. I hope y'all, because like I said, this shit's very real life. Try to fly right in life because, nothing good comes out of bad, you know. And so, yeah, so I'm gonna end on that note. Episode 9. Uh, so we got more shit coming. I'm not exactly sure what I want episode 10 to be yet. Probably episode 10. I'm gonna end the. I want to kind of do like a series. So this is like season 1, season 2 type shit, like a motherfucking Netflix. But not for. All right, chichotas. I'm gonna end on that note. I'll catch y'all on episode 10. Stay tuned. Like I said, go check out episode 8 and all the previous episodes. Like and subscribe. All that cheesy YouTuber shit. Know y'all fuck with this sign. Hold the hell clean. Yeah.